you have been back in the office since June. So tell us what that experience has been like. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening today who are going to be experiencing that for the first time this fall. So give us a preview of what they can expect.
Sure. I think there's no doubt this has been incredibly disruptive over the last 15 to 18 months. I think for us at Kansas State, I think we very early on, we were proactive in moving our folks to a remote work dynamic. So we've never lost sight of the fact that we never stopped working. We just couldn't be together to do it. So pretty special. June 1 of this year, we mandated and required all of our staff to be back here. Certainly, we made some exceptions for those that might have had health or risk conditions that wouldn't allow, but largely we got all of our staff to be back here. So literally over a couple of months of getting reacquainted, being fully present. I think it just brings the full capability of our team back together, strengthening relationships, certainly being able to be out doing our work with donors and engaging with our campus community, and kind of moving past the virtual platforms has been highly effective. It's been reinvigorating to us as a team and what we love about our profession and when we think it's most effective. So having that ability to be present and engaged was really, really important. I think we're pretty excited and optimistic that this will continue to persist and work. I mean, a little over 2 months into this, we haven't had any cases really here, emerge. And so we think the protocols we're doing allows us to do this intelligently and certainly feels better to the staff. And as we progress to a new fiscal year beginning July 1, to start fresh in our full way of doing our work just felt so right for us. So people are back on the road. We're seeing good progress, and it just feels good to have that opportunity.
It's such a, for all of us, that's just a heartening message. So let's step back a little bit and look at your career. So you've held senior positions at a very diverse set of institutions. So could you describe your career arc and share what lessons you've learned along the way?
Yeah, sure. I think the only thing you might say would be consistent about them is they were all public institutions, but again, several of them land grants and certainly a varied set of geographic locations and kind of mission orientations. So I think in broad strokes, my career arc might be best described as having started in the private sector for about 14 years after graduation, and then working in construction and insurance and financial services industries, and then ultimately over the past 20 years being in higher education, philanthropy, fundraising, or the not-for-profit world. So those experiences certainly in the private sector were helpful, beneficial in developing some skills that I brought to higher education philanthropy. And kind of the career arc, the institutions I served at, Pete. So beginning back in 2002, I started at Texas A&M University at the foundation where I graduated from Texas A&M in 1988. So it was pretty easy to start and serve at an institution that I understood pretty well. So after serving in the private sector, I think it's clear to say that over 14 years, I was having a hard time. I was struggling with the for-profit motive, shareholder value being kind of the higher calling for what I was using my talents for. I can't say that I always agreed with the values and what our companies really were motivated by in terms of serving our customers. So I think I probably had a lot of conflict in terms of what I was using my talent to do in life. And when the opportunity emerged to get into higher education philanthropy, didn't know a lot about it, but certainly the nobility of the mission and some of the thoughts about how I'd use my talents and how those were transferable was pretty appealing. And so again, getting that first start at the Texas A&M Foundation was pretty special. Like most people in our profession, philanthropy or working in higher education advancement, wasn't a primary calling. I kind of stumbled into it through just happenstance. And sadly, which is I think one of the downfalls and what I'd like to see change in our industry is philanthropy and higher education advancement being a premier offering for our talented young people. So, but again, when I arrived, I embraced the mission. I loved the values and the orientation of what we tried to do. Philanthropy certainly something that was pretty motivating to me and how it could transform lives. So that time at Texas A&M was pretty special. Certainly they taught me a lot about philanthropy, how it works, and certainly my eyes were blown wide open in terms of how pervasive this was and the magnitude of dollars and impact that was at play in higher education. From my time at Texas A&M, I next had an opportunity to go to the University of British Columbia. And so in an elevated role and opportunity was recruited there with some other great professionals. They were getting ready to do a campaign at UBC. GG&A was the campaign consultants and the firm. So Martin Grensback and John Glear and a lot of that talented group were part of helping us craft, how we were going to develop a campaign for UBC. And I had great experiences there. I worked with an amazing team of talented people, Barbara Miles, Heather McCaw, and a number of others that I revered in the profession, and had the opportunity to co-manage the collegiate development team. So for my time at Texas A&M, started in a very frontline position and then advanced to managing engineering development, their biggest college. And then at UBC, managing about 9 different collegiate or unit programs with about 60 staff. So a broader spectrum of leadership opportunities. Certainly opened my eyes to, how you have to manage the individual and adjust and adapt for managing talent. And that was a great experience for me at UBC. Certainly learned a lot there. From my time at UBC, having some success there, that developed and an opportunity to go to the University of Hawaii Foundation. And I went to work with Donna Vucinic, who was the CEO at the time, and a great board. It was in a foundation setting instead of a university setting. So another kind of varied experience. University of Hawaii, obviously a very special location, certainly part of the United States, but kind of out there on an island, and by itself, a unique culture and kind of pace of life. But a great experience managing all of the fundraising realm for that enterprise. And that was a system foundation. So we had basically 9 different campus settings that were served by that foundation. And again, a varied group of talent that needed to be supported in a unique way. And so 4 years at the University of Hawaii, and then come full circle, turn around and boomerang back to the mainland and, enjoying the Pacific Northwest and then the Pacific Islander atmosphere. Now we came back full circle to kind of the center of the country. And so 6.5 years ago, my wife, Christine, and I arrived in Manhattan, Kansas, and I began my career as the CEO here. Back at a land grant in a foundation setting, which I experienced at A&M and University of Hawaii. I like that structure and certainly knew the institution from my time at A&M and being there. We had some exposure to Kansas State. So, certainly coming here and getting the opportunity to lead was a special opportunity. I think my progression allowed me a lot of varied experiences at those other institutions that I brought in my arsenal to really support what we could do together here. And so that's kind of been my journey through 4 institutions. And now, again, 6.5 years later, here we are at Kansas State doing great things here in the middle of the country.
Greg, you mentioned that 3 of those institutions were land grants. So, how has their mission influenced how you approach attracting philanthropic support?
Yeah, there's so many elements of it. The land grant for me, I probably didn't have any clue about what a land grant was when I was attending a land grant at Texas A&M. You naively, you go along and you have a very rudimentary and a simple view of what you're there to do. I would say, having served at 3 of them and certainly experiencing my time with the leadership and the faculty and having them articulate with clarity, the notion of the land grant mission and what that means to our country and to the communities they serve, it's ingrained in me. I'd say it's etched in my mind. I think it would be hard for anybody or impossible for anybody to argue against the fundamental design and the service expectations of a land grant mission and how it was originally conceived. So very forward thinking about how do you build up some enterprises that would create access to affordable, high quality education, support discovery and innovation for economic vitality and promotion of a society, and then certainly provide service. I think that egalitarian principle certainly was very visionary and harnessing the full potential of our nation's citizens. So I'm a product of a land grant. So my parents were very, very young parents. My mother was in her teens at the time when I was born. Neither one of them attended college. And so a very young family in upstate New York, and ran to Florida with 2 infants in tow, and rented a trailer and decided to start scrapping out a living. They did very well for themselves and worked very hard, but again, without higher education, pretty limited in their options, their opportunity. I was fortunate. They were very inspiring to my brother and I, adamant that we should go to college. And as a first generation college kid, having the opportunity to go to Texas A&M, I experienced firsthand what you could benefit from and how your life trajectory and a generational change in your family's history could happen by going to a land grant. So it's easy for me to talk about it. It's easy for me to understand it, and certainly to advocate for it with my career. I think it's been really, really special to me throughout my life. Certainly as we do our work in advancement, it's not hard to really identify that there's all kinds of different higher education institutions, private, publics, land grants, et cetera, regionals, liberal arts. But I think the land grant just is something really, really special. It's that service mission and how it strives to make sure that we proliferate, economic vitality and access and opportunity, I think is special. Probably no better example for me through Kansas State and Texas A&M through the extension service, and how we have professionals in every one of the counties of these states, on point, treasured resources, trusted resources, making sure that whether it's through agriculture or whether it's through health or whatever it may be, that community has access to the horsepower and the magic of these institutions to make their lives better. So I think day in and day out, the way we touch a community, the way we serve a community, and the nobility of the mission and the need and gaps and challenges that are filled by land grants has made it easy to wake up every day feeling empowered and really energized by making sure that these institutions are here to last for hundreds of years to come.
So I can see how you've been making this a compelling argument, because that was you just laid it all out there for us to see the impact that these institutions had. And I didn't know about your personal story, so that this idea of access and opportunity is something special. So let me then ask the question about the Innovation and Inspiration campaign, which recently concluded. My goodness, 1.6 billion is it for the university. How would you describe, well, first the success of that, and then as the campaign is concluded, what are your post-campaign plans?
Sure. I think it's something we're incredibly proud of here at Kansas State. When I arrived here in 2015, we had not gone public with this campaign. The goal at the time was $1 billion. It was the first time our institution had ever used the B word in the context of what we were going to endeavor to do. I think for the committee and even some of the institutional leadership, a lot of questions in their mind about how realistic, how practically possible this was. It didn't take me long after I arrived here, and again in my first 6 months working to help craft a way that we were going to launch this publicly and announce our intentions of the goal, and we were on our way to success. I actually was more optimistic, I think, than many of the leadership was about the possibility. When I looked at our analytics and what we had achieved to date, I thought there was a lot more capacity and room to grow and to produce other outcomes. We just needed to get organized and be more effective at doing it. So I think when we announced it, I think people were pretty energized. I think it re-rallied and galvanized our community around the importance of this goal and what it was going to deliver. The campaign was tied to a strategic plan for the university, K-State 2025, with some really audacious objectives of rank and image and quality and impact that they wanted to to grow at the institution. So for us, going along that journey, I think when I first we got it publicly launched and started going, I think I immediately started talking with our board and our leadership team about the opportunities to stretch that even further. How are we really going to set some records, attract some really marquee gifts and things that really made this more than just a decade crusade, but had signature outcomes that we could really lean on and build upon. And so I think we really went to work on that immediately. You know, certainly as time progressed, about a year into my service, sadly, our university president chose to depart and go to another institution. Kurt Schultz was our president, a great friend, did a great job here at K-State. He left to serve as the president at Washington State University. And so we're in the process of bringing a new leader on board. And, you know, through some good fortune, we had Richard Myers was our board chair of the foundation at the time, and he was asked to be our interim president, which he chose to do. So we had a deep connection from my recruitment that was helpful to me. And then ultimately he was selected to be our president. That to me was an opportunity. He was a known commodity. He and his wife, Mary Jo, were campaign co-chairs of our campaign, along with the Bernie family. And so I thought pretty quickly, we're not going to have to reintroduce a new leader to the institution. We're not going to do a new strategic plan. This guy's just going to carry forward. So we sat down very quickly and talked about elevating our goal and maybe adding a little time, and let's take advantage of the opportunity. And we did. We talked with the committee, talked with the institution. We raised the goal to 1.4 billion, added a couple of years, and again, just continued to truck along. So ultimately that culminated in conclusion of the event of the campaign, June 30th of 2020, with 1.6 billion raised, far exceeding all of our wildest dreams about what we could do. I think the timing of the conclusion was bittersweet in some respects. I mean, it was right at kind of the height of COVID, so we were robbed of the opportunity to probably do a more formal gathering, gala, kind of an engagement celebration. We had to pivot to kind of a 3-part webcast celebration of the outcomes of the event. I think that actually in itself was empowering as well. I think the donors and the volunteers, they were ready to tie a bow on this thing and say, mission complete. Let's celebrate this the best way we can and then focus on the future. And so we did that. So I think a great outcome for K-State, exceeding goal, some really great signature outcomes. First college naming gift for our university in the Carl R. Ice College of Engineering. Other signature outcomes and impacts for athletics in the academy were pretty incredible.
So I want to talk about this transition in leadership in a second, but you mentioned a couple of times the importance of engaging institutional leadership, whether that be academic leadership or volunteer leadership. So can you build on that a little bit? Tell me how you went about doing that.
Yeah, I'd say fundamentally, it's always certainly tailored to the individual. I think in any of our institutions, I don't think it's a surprise or a magic recipe here at K-State any different than any other enterprise. Where we really do our best work is when we're highly engaged with our institution's leadership at all levels. And I mean, individual faculty, department heads, deans, provost, president, and other key volunteer leaders in our advisory councils. And so harnessing the capability of the academic realm has always been incredibly important to us. And we put a lot of time and effort into that. At the end of the day, they bring the credibility, they bring the expertise, the knowledge of what's possible. So when our donors want to dream and imagine, they're the ones that can execute. So when we're at our best, it's when they're side by side working with donors, inspiring and guiding them to something that could really be meaningful for them as donors and the institution. Certainly where we bring our expertise is certainly the tactical expertise, right? So how to work with donors, how to develop relationships, how to craft good proposals, a good case, and then, really how do we make the ask and develop that progression of strategic work that goes from an idea to a meaningful ask to a conclusion that both can celebrate. We put a lot of time into this with faculty. I would say one of the things that we're proud of and probably is unique at K-State is we don't have a strict hierarchy about how we engage donors by dollar levels and those kinds of things. I think we look at where are the right people that would most connect with those donors and giving them the great experience. And again, having the credibility and probably the right kind of connection they're looking for. So instead of believing if a dollar level of a gift is high, that we have to have the president or me or a dean, we don't always subscribe to that. So we have staff at all levels of our organization. They're more than capable of doing $1 million or principal gift asks. And we actually promote that. We want our talented people to be able to originate those opportunities and take them through to completion. And the same with faculty. And so I think I'd probably characterize it this way. We look at the donor and the opportunity first, and then put the right team with it versus trying to have some formulaic or hierarchy dictate what we do. Again, a more distributed use of our talent means we got more people doing the right things and originating value at all times. Certainly, we spend a lot of time training, coaching, mentoring, and supporting faculty be successful at this. So internal training we do constantly throughout the year, special sessions we do with them throughout the year. In November, we're going to have a 2-day session. We're starting to do these around themes. And so student success is a theme for this fall's activities. And we're inviting all of our collegiate teams and even central teams of the academy that really work on this initiative, figuring out where we've got intersections that we could get partnership work, but also crafting our message and then probably building up some bigger audacious goals and some project initiatives we want to get done together. So I would say we wouldn't have had half the success we've had at Kansas State if we hadn't been able to inspire and engage our faculty to care about doing this work and to be there at the table, present, respecting our profession and seeing the valuable outcomes from it.
Well, I want to extend this because, one of the things, Greg, that I've been so impressed with in our conversations has been your commitment to building a high performing advancement program. So set dollars aside, what are other measures of success that you and your leadership look to?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, for any and all of us as professionals in this field, whether you're in a university setting as a VP for advancement or VP for development, working within a university structure or in a foundation structure like the one I'm here at Kansas State, I think it's about a sustainable enterprise, period. And how do you build a collection of talent and a set of processes, systems, and operational dynamics that are built to last and serve you very, very well. For me, I think just rattling off a handful of things or attributes or qualities that I think are critically important. I think first and foremost, it's about being partnership oriented, and how strong is this dynamic? So we just talked about the partnership with the institution. That is critical. Partnership with other enterprises, so our alumni association, our athletics program, other constituencies. So we lean heavily on strong partnerships that harness their capabilities and ours and the work that we do. Certainly strong mission alignment, I think, for our staff and for us as an enterprise to be motivated to be our best, to make great decisions, to drive our staff. This is about strong mission alignment, the nobility of that mission, what we're trying to do that is a higher calling. This is not transactional, it's relational, and we have audacious outcomes and meaningful goals that we want to achieve for our institution. So using that to really inspire the very best of our people to earn their discretionary commitment, to create purpose and meaning in their work so that when we engage all of our staff, we're not doing a job. We're delivering an outcome. So this is a calling, it's not a career. And we want people to feel and think that way about this work. I think other things that are important for building a high performing organization, I think, continuous improvement and challenging the status quo. I think there's a lot of convention and tradition in our space that needs to be challenged, and we take great pride in that. Certainly being built to last. I talked about this notion of being resilient and sustainable. So there's nothing more frustrating to professionals in our space, then when you build up great momentum and then you lose resources and you're going to have this up and down. So how do you build your enterprise to be built for last so that you're constantly going up and to the right? And there when your institution needs you the most. So you look at this last 15 to 18 months, no time more important in our history of doing our work where the institution needed us to be our very, very best. Looking for resources or getting organized when they were in crisis mode was not a place I wanted to be. So, I think that resilient, sustainable, built to last element is really important. Highly engaged staff, I think, we spend a lot of time on culture and with our people here, making sure that, we have an objective. We're trying to give our people their pinnacle career experience. So no matter what they do in their walk of life, private sector, not-for-profit, this institution, another, we want them to reflect on their time at the Kansas State Foundation saying, this is the best job I ever had. If we do that and we make decisions that allow them to say that, then we think we're doing the right things. And so that comes with engaging them at a high level with good communication. It means, we do a staff survey every year that's about 60 pages long. It's done by Custom Insights that really challenges them and us to be our best. So it asks a lot of questions about their manager experience, about their career progression, about their authority and resources and control to do their jobs. And so when we get that feedback, if we're not hearing and seeing what we need to see, we lay those challenges out in front of everybody and we'll make new commitments. So, and there go my lights. Sorry about that. Efficient, effective. So we're on timed light switches. They won't let me waste a nickel. But so I think, engaging your staff through real meaningful engagement, feedback, and showing constant improvement is important. And then, being efficient, effective. And then last, I will say probably it's really important to maintain and proliferate a high quality brand. For us to be successful with our institution, with our donors, they need to know that we're a trusted enterprise, an enterprise that's doing significant things. So our tagline at the K-State Foundation is boldly advancing K-State family. So K-State family is a special, 2 words here. It's a special relationship we have with the institution and they have with their enterprise. And we want to do bold things. We want to do big things. So we don't want to be common. We don't want to produce incremental gains. We want to do significant quantum leap kind of impacts for K-State. So those things really jump out at me. If I had to kind of pin it down to underlying elements that I think are our secret sauce, I think it's our culture. To me, what I'll call the basics of our work, how we engage donors and how we go about the process, those are the simple technical kind of fundamentals. But really where we get our best is earning the discretionary commitment of our people, them having a higher calling, building a culture here where we care about our outcomes and we strive to do better every single year. That continuous improvement mantra is pretty special for us. So I think those things are really, really important to build a high performing organization.
Greg, this has been such a thoughtful session. I'm so grateful to you for taking the time to share your perspective and your insights. And thanks to everybody who joined us today. We're all learning together, and we're fortunate to have leaders in the profession join us to share their thoughts. So if you have any questions for us, Greg, myself, or the firm, we'd love to hear from you. And again, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope everybody has a great week.
Thanks, Pete. I appreciate the time and the opportunity and hope the audience enjoyed our time together.
Fantastic.